Hello and thanks with us for being on Live Fist. I'm Shiv Arur and we're very happy to be joined on this new episode of Live Fist Talks by Vivek Krishnan. He's the Chief Executive Officer of SSS Defense. You've seen them, no doubt, quite often at recent defense exhibitions like Def Expo. This is a private sector, a small private sector firm with a large manufacturing background that's been getting into the very difficult area of firearms, small arms for the Indian security forces. They've made some very visible strides with the frontline weaponry as well that are being tried out by the security forces as well. And this happens to be a very important time in this particular sector, especially since the Indian government has imposed an import ban on certain items, which includes firearms and ammunition, which is very much the space in which SSS Defense actually operates. Vivek, pleasure to have you. Thank you for being with us. I know you're busy, but I can see that you're working from home, which must be difficult for a guy like you who's used to being out there in this very exciting space. Great to have you here. The first question, I'm going to dive straight into the first question, Vivek, which is that lots of opportunity here in the small arms space, which is what you operate in. Give us an overview of what your company is doing right now. I know that you've made some strides in sniper rifles. There are lots of acquisitions happening in the carbine and the assault rifle space. We'll take them one by one, but just give us an overview first.
Right. Shiv, first of all, thanks for having me. I've been listening to your videos in the sense that when I normally listen to it, I'm pretty much always driving in Bangalore traffic. But again, it's a pleasure to be around here. And let me quickly start with a background to the company. So SSS Defense is a sort of a skunk works unit under the umbrella of a firm called Stump Shule and Somappa Springs. So 4S is the largest manufacturer of high quality springs in India. We've largely served the automotive sector, but for the last 25 years, we've also been a supply chain partner to the ordnance factories. So pretty much most of the springs that you will find in a lot of the Indian equipment that you find in the armory actually come from our side. Now, the background to actually moving into the OEM space as far as small arms and ammunition is concerned was a decision that was taken approximately about 3.5 years back, and then fructified very quickly thereafter. So the objective at that point in time was a bunch of us trying to see if we could kind of play as an original equipment manufacturer in the defense space. The initial idea was always to kind of crystallize on the areas that we would want to work on. And so small arms turned out to be a very natural ally for us because a lot of what we understand in the form of metallurgy, high quality materials, springs for that matter, design and development, they had a lot of commonality with the small arms in the ammunition space. So that is how we actually decided to choose the small arms space. What we also realized simultaneously was that a good car can be called a good car only when it actually shows performance. And in the small arms space, one of the critical parameters that drives performance is the quality of the ammunition that you use in there. And so we didn't want to be a player that was one dimensional. We wanted to be a player that had multiple facets to offer to the defense sector. Having a great small arm with poor ammunition was not really going to be cutting much ice. And that's one reason why we also walked into the ammunition space. What thereafter came in was an entry into the military optics space as well. Though, to be honest with you, as far as military optics is concerned, we're being very, very choosy. We're not walking into everything. There are many other companies in India who've done fantastically well in the area of night vision and thermal imaging. What we're trying to focus on are those products which can work wonderfully well with our snipers and our own assault rifles, so to speak. So we're trying to drive some kind of a commonality in terms of usage between our weapon and the military optic, be it day sights or night sights. We are licensed to manufacture both small arms and ammunition. The small arms plant is going to be ready by November of this year. And the ammunition plant is a joint venture with a firm called CBC, which is the second largest ammunition manufacturer in the world, based out of Brazil. That is coming up on approximately about 60 odd acres of land in Anandpur. In a nutshell, what we're aiming for is to be fully operational by November, December of the coming year, and to be able to offer the entire suite of products, as also the design and development of the intellectual property which some of these products would require from India. So on small arms, we're not looking at, or we rather never looked at getting technology from outside. Of course, we tried it, but realized very quickly that there were many complications, and what you would be getting in the form of technology was substantially deficient in terms of what we wanted and what the forces would want tomorrow. And so we decided to do a lot of the internal design and development works, invested substantial sums of money into that one, which is one of the reasons why I can confidently state today that on snipers, as also in assault rifles, we have homegrown technologies and have the ability to offer substantial customization over the period of time. Now, let me quickly start with the first question which you put forward, which is about the SSS defense sniper. So the Indian military is currently looking at .338 Lapua Magnum sniper, which is a very powerful weapon with a very, very powerful round as well. The military also has a designated marksman rifle, which is the DSR, the Dragunov sniper rifle. It also has the Galil sniper rifle. Both of these are not as powerful as the .338 Lapua Magnum, but are very good squad marksman rifle weapons. So in effect, you're seeing a change as far as tactics is concerned, that in due course of time, you want to be engaging larger targets, you want to be engaging longer as well, right? And you want to have crack teams doing the same like you have outside of India. Special forces as also marksman teams. So that's the army side of things. So the army is kind of looking towards more powerful weapons, longer ranging. But then you also have the law enforcement in India. And the law enforcement here, I mean the CAPF, so the BSF, the CISF and the likes, for whom the 338 is a little too powerful, right? Will not kind of suit the function that they perform. And so what they're kind of looking at is a marksman rifle, a bolt action marksman rifle that is, which is chambered for the 7.62 by 51 NATO rounds of such. So automatically you start realizing that you want to be a player in the Indian, in the small arms space, and that if you want to kind of work on precision firearms, you need to have a horses for courses approach, right? And our intent right from the beginning was to keep this horses for courses approach. We didn't want to be just one-dimensional, again, sticking to only the military while giving up on the law enforcement. So the development of the sniper commenced in the year 2018, which is when the very first RFP was announced. Unfortunately, because we at that point in time did not have a weapon which had been sold anywhere, right? And the RFP was only issued to the original equipment manufacturers. We were definitely not allowed to participate in that particular tender. But something did tell us that the way that the tender was driven, the very limited participation that we saw in the course of that tender, it was pretty much sure that that would kind of not, get translated into a final order. So we decided at that point in time to kind of be a little more aggressive, took a calculated risk to do the development on our own. And so today I can state with complete confidence, and I'm sticking my neck out here, that we have a fully functioning 7.6251 tested sniper rifle, which can go up to ranges of approximately 1,000 meters to 1.2 meters with match-grade ammunition. The .338 Lapua Magnum sniper rifle, we believe, will be at par with global competitors and will also have the ability to match up to whatever the Indian Army wants in terms of suitability to mission criteria. And that in the course of this year, we will be able to put it through formalized trials across all possible environments, be they desert, forest, high altitude, etc. We've done a lot of experimentation there. What separates our sniper from a lot of other competitors globally is that we did not design it for the Western Caucasian figure. We wanted to make it as ergonomic as possible. We wanted to make sure that somebody who is 5'11", right, is capable of using it as much as someone who's 5'3", right? Number two, we realized very early on that what the Western military contractors, the OEMs, were giving to the Indian Army were not exactly their best weapons. They were always kind of giving us the second or the third best weapons. So most weapons that you will find on the 7.6251, for instance, had the Remington 700 footprint. Guys who were having their own proprietary bolt actions would never give you those proprietary bolt actions. They would always want to give you something which is average, right, which would suit the bill, but would never be exactly what you wanted. So what we did was we said, okay, fine, we'll keep a 700 Remington footprint, right? If anybody wants it, we'll be happy to give it. But we defined our own footprint based upon what is considered the gold standard, which is a SHATAC, right? So we right now have our sniper rifles, which have our own proprietary bolt actions, right? Which is military grade. You can put them through the ringer, and I'm absolutely sure that they'll come out of it, right? We use the best possible materials in there. So the rifle is actually modular. You can actually strip it down in about 15 minutes and put this back in 15 minutes, which is exactly what the US Army does, right? Field stripping in the depot, customization is very, very easy. And remember, the sniper is always a weapon which requires substantial customization. So we've given all of these advantages, which, in my opinion, most of the foreign contractors would definitely not be able to give to an Indian company out of the intent that they have of keeping the best quality to themselves, right? Now, the other important point which I want to kind of mention here is that a sniper is as good as the ammunition that you're actually able to provide. Reliance upon a foreign country for ammunition in due course of time, in my opinion, is a cardinal sin, should never be attempted. So what we're trying to do internally is also manufacture the small arms and also the ammunition for the match grade rounds that we see here. So if I'm able to kind of convert what we have as a vision here, what we want to say in about, let's say we are in August 15, 2020, by August 15th, 2021, right? What I would like to tell the Army, and I would want them to really believe in this, is that you've actually got the best possible rifle in India, which suits Indian mission criteria, which is made for you guys. We can give you all the MRO that you want in this country, all the customization that you want in this country. We can give you the ammunition that you want in this country. And we can also provide you the ability to accessorize it as quickly as you want. And it doesn't matter whether you need it for special operations or whether you want this for training and regular infantry. We can still offer you the training in this country. So that's the whole vision that I have as far as sniper rifles is concerned. And that's a group. And as a group, we've shared the whole vision.
Vivek, yeah, I had a couple of follow-up questions on the sniper program, but you've pretty much covered even some of those questions that I had. So I'll shift focus to some of the other things, and then maybe we can come back to the sniper towards the end. To anyone who's even sort of remotely watching this space, the things that jump out are the imports. We're constantly importing. This is a country that's just loves importing foreign equipment, from snipers to carbines to assault rifles. We're getting the SIGs. There's a follow-on order for the SIGs. I hear we're about to sign up for the Emirati carbines as well. When one hears about the fact that we've got these rifles here and they're ready, sure, yours is a recent development, so maybe you didn't have a product ready to participate in some of those contests. But does anything justify importing these large quantities of small arms anymore, given that there appears to be a certain level of maturity in what we have here?
Well, Shiv, my own personal view about imports is that we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And I've always resisted any attempts to sugarcoat. I believe that imports were fine at a certain point in time, right? And no country decides to go out and keep imports as its cornerstone when it comes to finding even a modicum of, of national security preparedness, right? I actually want to kind of put across a story for you guys. It's a very interesting story, in fact. Sometime in the year 2017, the US Special Operations Command came out with an RFP kind of a thing, what they would call their RFP. The idea was that they would reverse engineer some of these Russian weapons, specifically the Pika, which fires a 7.6 to 54 and the 12.7 by 108. And it caused a whole lot of furore because the Russians had licensed certain countries like the Polish OEMs to actually manufacture some of these. But then the Americans stuck to their guns and said, look, there is a reason why I want to re-engineer some of these weapons for my surrogate armies. For instance, the Afghan National Army and some of the other forces that were using these weapons were very comfortable with these weapons. Their point was, if I need to be using these weapons in field, in depots, I need to have access to spares. I need to be able to quickly turn these around for weapons that can go into battles. The international imports is not going to work, right? And so you're talking about an American group which is talking about re-engineering a Russian weapon group for its surrogate armies. It can very easily buy whatever it wants to, but it still says, I need to be able to manufacture them domestically, right? And here we are trying to kind of go in the opposite direction where we say, fine, as long as we're able to get some of these guys to provide us weapons, we're satisfied. But remember one thing, there are acquisition lead times in every one of these imports that you do. So you can't simply go across and say, I'm going to be buying the SIG 716 and expect that the next month or the next 3 months, you're going to see all of those SIGs come into this country. There are acquisition lead times. In the present year, you actually have the maximum demand for firearms in the US market. No country is actually going to be thinking about India when it's got its own domestic market to service. And that domestic market will not change from year after year to year, right? Yes, what we've effectively done by doing imports is we've subsidized them, right? You've not given any benefit to Indian companies at all. You've actually subsidized them so that they can bring down the value, the price of those weapons. So as far as our position goes, in the present environment, the army is doing a very wrong thing by going in for imports. It doesn't matter whether you kind of have emergency purchases or not, because I can very clearly say that most armies, what they resort to in these circumstances is to go back into the private sector and say, this is your timeline. I mean, you've got 6 months to deliver. Come back to us with a weapon. We don't need you guys to kind of take on an order that's worth multiple $1 million. For now, let's think about 20,000 weapons. Who needs 100,000 weapons? If you're able to give us the first batch of 20,000 weapons, and then we can sit down with you, do a co-creation, come up with Mark II and Mark III and Mark IV. We can. The one good thing that will come out of this is that you can actually customize those weapons to mission criteria. And India is a country that has got phenomenal changes in mission criteria. What is on the LC is not the same as what's there on the LAC. Is not the same as what the covert forces might require. And that's the same in most countries, but India is a very unique place in that regard. So our position on that is very, very clear. Why is it that we're still importing? Well, that's a nice question. I believe that there is a philosophy that a silver bullet might somewhere help you out. But at the same time, I've also seen a position in the forces, as also in the bureaucracy today, that says, fine, we need to kind of look at how many guys in India can actually deliver. I have very good competitors in the space. There is PLR Systems, a very good firm with a very good partner. There is Bharat Forge, and some of us are actually capable of doing a lot of these manufacturing in-house, right? We do not require at any point in time for the army to come across and say, till you that I'm going to give you a multiple $1 million contract. Some of us, I mean, I'm actually very happy if the army comes across and says, I want 200 weapons. I would do that. But that is something I would do because I'm Indian, right? So I'm actually putting forward a message through you saying that if the army needs to test us, come back, test us, right? We'll give you the products that you want. We'll give you the attention that you want. And that attention is not something that you will get from foreign players. We don't need big orders, but we definitely need you to trust us. And if you do trust us today, you sure will be able to get Mark I, Mark II, Mark III going forward in many years. And I will definitely be able to capitalize upon the international export market for military because you are one of my buyers. I don't believe in the fact that you have to buy a weapon that's made in the UAE. I obviously believe that if you actually have to look at all the forces across the world, forget about the US, forget about Europeans. Indonesia has its own assault rifle and carbine. Philippines has its own assault rifle and carbine. UAE, of course, has its own assault rifle and carbine, though I actually am lost for words to see where exactly they even fight wars, right? Bolivia, I believe, has its own. Brazil has its own. In all of these cases, the domestic industry is prospered because of the fact that there is a certain element of trust, right? That is what we need today, right? I'm seeing there is positive movement in that direction, but the obsession with foreign stuff is a mind space related thing, and that has to kind of find its way out very soon.
You know, Vivek, since you talked about the mind space and you said that there have been some steps that have been taken, you know, I've been reporting defense for a long time, and I've seen from time to time steps taken by successive governments on the, you know, the issue of self-reliance. Now we're calling it Atmanirbharta, but, you know, there have been efforts from time to time as far as self-reliance is concerned. You know, to touch upon just very briefly this import negative list that's just been published by the Ministry of Defense. I'm sure you've seen it very, very closely. obviously nobody can miss that directly concerning the sector that you operate in. Some of the items on that list include the 7.62 sniper rifle, the assault rifle, the Dragunov upgrade, 30 millimeter ammunition. Those are just some of the things that sort of stood out to me, and I'm sure you're looking at those as well. So let's talk about the import negative list for a moment. Do you think it's a good thing? It's a good first step? There have been some skeptics, but a move in the right direction?
Well, I'm philosophically right of center when it comes to economics. So there is a tendency in me to say, fine, global free trade is good, right? But look, in practicality, there is no global free trade. Definitely not in defense, right? The most capitalist country in this world does not allow free trade as far as weapons is concerned. They find their way out by using regulation. I think we guys are the ones who kind of fall for it, right? More often than not. So when it comes to the import negative list, it's a clear thumbs up from our side, because what this will force us to do is it will force co-creation between the forces, the defense research organizations, and private industry, right? When co-creation happens is when you will actually, and when co-creation happens within time-bound norms, that is when you will actually see the most innovation. So let me give you an example, and again, I'll be very candid here. We went in for the AK-203, and so you find the 7.62 by 39 assault rifles in that negative list. But I actually believe that the 7.62 by 39 rifle being in that negative list is good for us as well. Okay, and there is a view that many people hold that the AK-203 is probably not the best weapon for a modern military force, right? It's fine for general infantry, but I doubt whether the special forces would be the ones who would want the AK-203 in as many numbers. What we've been doing a lot of work on the back end is trying to create an AK variant. I wouldn't even call it an AK variant. My team likes to call it the 7.62 by 39 triple S defense weapon, right? So what the AK-203 does not have, we have. We've got a fully free-floated barrel. We've got a full-length rail. The AK-203, in fact, has just a riveted rail on top, and our technical team really does not think very highly of a riveted rail, right? We have the use of materials. We've used only the best materials. It's a milled receiver as against a stamped receiver. Things have changed over the course of time, so we should not be going back to stamped receivers, which were very, Cold War kind of Russian construct. We have the ability to integrate every form of optic, right? So you can have day vision, night vision, you can have magnification, you can have red dot sights, holographic sights, put in the works. We've got a buttstock, which kind of is telescopic, also has the ability to fold in itself. So some of these things are not available in the AK, right? All that the AK-203 offers is a very reliable weapon. And as long as you have a long stroke piston working in there, your weapon is equally reliable. So I believe that the 7.6239 embargo is good for me, because I'm actually able to put forward another variant of the 7.62 by 39 rifle, which may not be manufactured in as high quantities as the AK-203, but for sure, I can put that out as a high-end, a very high-quality weapon at very affordable prices, right? So that's one. As far as the 7.62 by 51 sniper rifle goes, well, I've already told you we have a variant, and that's a variant that I believe is among the best in its league. I believe that the technical team that we have has put in, crazy amount of hours trying to refine that to the point. Like I did tell you, we have even a proprietary bolt in that. So we should be ready at any point in time to be called in by the army, or for that matter, the paramilitary, and told to respond. And we're very happy to do that as well. Trials, as I've always told you, have been a consistent part of our development. We've done trials every day. I've done trials yesterday, we've done trials last week, so on and so forth. So for us, the negative list is a good one, right? Where I see the negative list needs to get better is it should not be a stagnant concept. Tomorrow, if you're able to move forward on maybe investing R&D and creating a high quality weapon, at no point in time should regime changes be forcing us to suddenly go back in time. So I believe that the dynamics of this particular thing have to be continued for quite some time. 101 items should, in due course of time, become maybe a larger number as well.
to get the outside view, Vivek, on India's indigenous firearms projects, like the INSAS and some of the others, the OFP, the DRDO, the others, one hears very often, and I've tracked it quite closely, about the problems that the army has. Doesn't look very favorably upon the INSAS. What's the outside view on this? Because, the very simplistic way of putting it is that we can't put together a simple firearm. I mean, this is the Defense Research and Development Organization, the Ordnance Factory Board. What have they been doing all this while if they can't put together a firearm, that satisfies the requirements and the usage experience of the Indian Army? What's the outside view on that?
Well, I'm going to give you our view, which is very concise, and I'm going to also tell you about the outside view, which is the global view, right? Just remember one thing: it is not as if the Western world is perfected making a firearm, right? You still have the same designs which have been going on for donkey's years. The AK design was firmed up way back, pre-Cold War. The M16, the M4, etc., is all based upon the DI, the direct gas impingement system, which was defined by Eugene Stoner many, many decades back. So they've actually done incremental improvements, right, on the same platform, on the same system. The DRDO has done its job in this country, right, based upon what was actually told to them in terms of, mission criteria and so on and so forth. But what also happened is that time passes by, right? And you can't hold on to that same QR which was there 30 years back, right? And maybe make cosmetic changes to those QRs and say, I want a modern weapon from that same old weapon. It doesn't happen that way. So sometimes, like it happens in the aviation industry, it doesn't make any more sense to create new versions of the old Airbus. It might make sense for you to start off from scratch and start from zero. Now, I think that is where the OFP and many of the other guys have actually got their philosophy is wrong, because their objective would be to try and hold on to that same assembly line, because you don't have to retrain, you don't have to recreate, you don't have to destroy in the first place. We come in with the opposite mindset, right? For us, creative destruction is a daily thing, right? There have been many products that we've created which have not seen the light of day. There have been many products which we've created, saw the light of day 10 years down the line, because we're very far from where things should have been. So that's the same situation for us as well. What we're trying to do today is not get into a design and development methodology that will force us 10 or 20 years from today, right, to run back saying, you know what, I can't do this because I'm used to doing it that way. Okay. And that particular issue is what the Americans have managed to somehow or the other fight. So all what you're seeing in Europe and in the US is actually a new era of modernization, which is happening after almost 20 years. But they're better placed than most of us, because what they've done over the course of time is incremental development. Right? They've changed materials, they've changed designs a little bit. They've experimented with new materials in some cases. In some cases, they've actually thrown the old weapon out and come up with a new Mark 1, Mark 2 version of the same. Right? I think we just kind of got a little too comfortable at some point in time. But to be honest with you, there is a role that DRDO plays in the ecosystem, and there is no comparison to a DRDO. They are the equivalent of what you might see in the US as a DARPA, right? All that is needed going forward is for them to work with private industry, right? And that too should happen soon.
Last couple of questions, Vivek. The issue of ammunition, you touched upon that. It's something that your company is involved in, and you talked about how your facility, your joint venture facility, will be up and running pretty soon. The question I have is, there are a variety of ammunition requirements, even in the firearms space. We've covered it. The different calibers, the perceived inability for the army sometimes to sort of rationalize and streamline its caliber requirements based on what it the kind of fight it really wants. Is that something that has been rationalized now? Because I remember there having been quite a bit of confusion, lots of different kinds of ammunition, as many as 4 different calibers across a family of weapons, and those requirements.
Well, 4 is an understatement, right? We've got a museum of ammunition in our country. Okay, so we have the 5.56 NATO, which are used in the towers. You have the INSAS round, which is not exactly the 5.56 round, which is a very different kind of a round. We have the 7.62 by 51, which is used in the medium machine guns. You have the 7.62 54, which is used in the Dragunov sniper rifle and in the Pika. One is a match grade ammunition. The other one is a machine gun round. You have the 9mm rounds. You have the 12.7 by 99 rounds, which are used in some cases. You have the 12.7 by 108 rounds, which are used in the other. No other country actually has this variety. And I don't say this well. I actually say this in a very funny way, because if anyone were to come down here and then see the kind of weapons that we have, they just say, wow, I mean, how did you manage to do this, right? So that is, I believe, the very first issue that you have. It's a logistical nightmare, and everybody knows this. The forces know it, the law enforcement and the paramilitary know it. But this is all because of the fact that you built upon things. You said, I need this. How do I fulfill this loophole? How do I cover it up? And you bought something, right? And you never thought about the ammunition which would come in. So what is our story here? Do we kind of tell the forces you have to rationalize? Well, that's something that they know exceedingly well, right? You can't tell the forces something that they know very, very well, right? Our objective is to find solutions to those problems, period. So how is it that we can find the first solution to the problem? The first solution to the problem is to be able to scale up and provide high quality rounds. If you're able to provide both of these and manufacture those in India with as much indigenized raw material and designs as possible, I think we do the first job. I think that's the priority for us, right? So we looked at all the primary rounds which are going to be used by the forces in the next 10 years. And in our opinion, we can kind of, also figure out export markets for them, because an ammunition, if I'm kind of only selling to the Indian military, it doesn't make any sense. It's an annual requirement. You need to be able to also sell to foreign militaries and other markets. So we kind of identified 3 to 4 rounds. Of course, the 9mm, because it's going to be a very common round in law enforcement, is also in the military. The 7.62 by 39, because the AK-203 is actually going to be depending upon that, and in substantially large numbers. Then we have the carbines, which, if the government is keen on going in for the Make in India process, we're talking about at least 400,000 numbers over many years. And then you have the SIGs. Now, the SIGs have come in. The SIGs use NATO ammunition rounds, 7.62 51. I have no clue where they're going to be getting those ammunition rounds from India, because as far as I know, NATO ammunition round 7.62 51, we don't have a very good supply or good quality on those. So we decided to focus on these 4 rounds. And our objective is to scale up over 3 years to a position where the annual essential requirement, right, can be complemented by us at much better quality than what the Ordnance Factory Board is capable of offering, and at a lower price as well, right? So if that is our first objective, then we move on to the next objective, which is trying to identify ways and means in which we can rationalize the usage of these rounds. As an example, since the army is anyways going to be going in towards a sniper rifle chambered for the .338 Lapua Magnum, our team's been sitting around and figuring out if maybe in about a year from now we can put forward a light machine gun which also uses the .338, because to have not a light machine gun, a machine gun which also fires the .338, because having machine guns which can fire 7.62 51 and the .338 will effectively end all requirement. You don't need anything beyond that. You don't need the 12.7. You don't need the 5.56 machine guns. You do not need the 7.62 54 Pika machine guns, right? You effectively rationalize the entire requirement of machine guns to 2 rounds of ammunition, and period. But that's work in process, right? There is no way we can rationalize in a jiffy, and I doubt whether we should be doing that. I also do not see any reason for us to jump the ladder and try and go for newfangled concepts like caseless rounds and polymer cased rounds at this point in time, because going in for those means you also have to go about making changes to your weapons, subtle changes to those weapons, and we don't have that flexibility to do so.
Final question then, Vivek, which is that this is a specific, intense sector of weaponry that you function in: firearms, ammunition, optics, like you said, to create that commonality for your own weapon systems. Going forward, give us a sense of what innovation looks like at your company and your sector. I know that a company like yours tends to improve upon what you have, but speaking about the creation and destruction process, What's next in the sense in the firearms sector? What's next in terms of innovation?
Look, okay, like I did tell you, I think the first priority on innovation from a business standpoint, and I'm speaking right now from a very constrained position. That position being that I can come out with all the innovation I wish to, but till such point in time that the military comes across and says, show me your innovation, I don't do much, right? That's what happens elsewhere. I mean, I want to kind of get to a position in 2 or 3 years' time when the military comes across and says, guys, show me what you have new. And we do that. But for now, our first objective would be to try and ensure that what we have as weapons are going to be using the best quality materials that we can find, right? How is it that we can make the weapon lighter? How is it that we can kind of minimize the use of, for instance, polymer? Okay, or can we make a lighter weight polymer in certain cases and adapt our process of manufacturing in due course of time? That's the first priority as we stand today. But there are certain innovations that we guys are working on, and this is again from a strategic viewpoint, right? We tend to change our views based upon what the rest of the world does, right? So when the Americans moved from the 7.6 to 51 to the 5.56, right, saying that the first objective would be to kind of injure and not to, to kill. We said, okay, fine, we'll also move in that direction. Today, the Americans are moving in the direction of 7.6 to 51 or maybe a 6.5 Creedmoor, and we've also got to kind of move in that same direction, right? So I think what we want to do is we want to kind of do some R&D on that side. We want to come up with better quality rounds and the weapons which would kind of fire some of those rounds. For instance, a 6.5 Creedmoor, right? It is something that is in the works as far as weapon is concerned. That's an innovation from our side. Needless to say, it needs to be organically developed along with the ammunition manufacturing capability, or else you're going to be stuck in that same time warp, not being able to deliver the whole product as a package. Second thing that we're working on is, for our snipers, can we have a head-up display through the optic that we use, right? So that actually compresses the time between when you want to kind of identify the target and then complete the process of pulling the trigger. It is being tried elsewhere. We have a very solid base of electronics and artificial intelligence that can kind of come together to kind of come up with a product like this. It is in the works. Like I did tell you, the light machine gun, sorry, not the light machine gun, can't be the light machine gun, but a machine gun which can use the .338 Lapua Magnum, right? And so the ammunition becomes common for both the sniper as also the machine gun is something in the works. It is definitely going to take us the better part of the next 1.5 years, provided we're able to find some bandwidth out of what we're trying to do here. A submachine gun, a very good submachine gun. That's something that's very dear to all of us here. It is a fantastic law enforcement weapon, right? Since the time that the MP5s have stopped coming into India because of German conditions today that they can't sell to non-NATO forces, we've been hampered on this front. So I'd like to kind of invest a little more of our team's resources to come up with a very good submachine gun. But again, that's in our view, it is not just about innovation. It is also about finding that particular time and the resources to build up something on those lines. Co-development is something that we want to pursue, right? Co-development can happen with the defense research agencies. It can happen with the army in itself. It can happen with the forces themselves. So we're open to most of those ideas only because of the fact that we have the ability to own the IP. We have the IP today. I'll be very critical here. In the firearm space, there will come a point in time when any amount of joint ventures that you have with foreign guys, right, will come to a full stop. You will never get the technology that those guys are giving to their forces. Never. Let me give you a very clear-cut example. We think the AK-203 is actually, God's or the Russians give to us. 2017 to 2019, the Russians decided that they wanted to move out, and they have the AK-12 and the AK-15s, which have been developed for their Spetsnaz units. They wouldn't dare to give us some of those, right? Because and I wouldn't dare to give my technology to anybody else, right? It's fair, right? You want to keep them for your own sport, for your own forces, because giving it out means giving out the advantage, right? For something which is as small as a firearm, it still doesn't matter. You want to keep those advantages to themselves. The Russians have just made 150,000 weapons, with the first lot of only 9,000 weapons going into the hands. Right? So I believe certainly that some of those innovations have to happen here in India, and you can't get them out of joint ventures with the Russians or the Americans or the Germans. Just never gonna work.
Vivek, like I always say in discussions like this, I've personally learned a lot, and I know my viewers have learned a lot as well. This is a deep insight into an area of great interest. I know that I will be looking out for how your company does going forward, as will all of our viewers here on LifeFist. So thanks very much for taking the time and taking my questions here on LifeFist Talks. It's been a great pleasure speaking to you, Vivek. Thank you.
With you as well. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. Hope to
Thanks.
see you soon.
Thanks.